Hare Krishna devotees, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Welcome to Bhagavad Sanga program. In this program, devotees read and recite a set of prayers from Srimad Bhagavatam and share their realizations. Today, we are finishing our theme of the prayers of Sukhdev Goswami. The reference for these prayers is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, verses 12 through 23. Today, we have a wonderful devotee presenting, Veena Mataji, our program coordinator. Mataji, thank you sincerely for your service. Hare Krishna, and over to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'll just share my screen. Are you able to see, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhus and Matajis. Thank you all for joining the Bhagavad Sanga program today. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I would like to thank Satyasara Prabhu, Jai Subhadra Mataji, and Prashant Prabhu for giving me this opportunity to speak today. Please forgive me if I make any mistakes during my presentations. So let me begin with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this chapter is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4. It's called Process of Creation. In the beginning of the chapter, Maharaj Parikshit, first he'll understand the truth of self from Sukhdev Goswami, and then he'll start focusing on Lord Krishna with full concentration and faithfully. Then Maharaj Parikshit, so basically Maharaj Parikshit, he has given up his body, his family, his entire kingdom. He has only 7 days left before he leaves this body, and he wants to make the best use of this 7 days. And so he starts listening Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukhdev Goswami. This is the background. He'll ask Sukhdev Goswami about Krishna and Krishna's energies, his expansions, his transcendental activities, and a lot more about Krishna. Now here's a catch. Sukhdev Goswami could have directly answered, but instead, before answering, he'll offer his prayers to Krishna so that Krishna can empower Sukhdev Goswami to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj so that he can talk about Krishna. So this is an important point here. Even great personalities like Sukhdev Goswami, who's vastly learned in Vedic literatures, he's a self-realized soul and a powerful devotee of the Lord. Even he prays to Lord before speaking about Lord. That's how important prayers is for us. And we have to get mercy of Krishna to even speak about Krishna. So before I even present, that's the realization I have learned from this, so that I would like to offer my prayers to Krishna, our Acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada. So I can repeat the prayers of Sukhdev Goswami and the translation and purport of Srila Prabhupada and lectures from Srila Prabhupada. So it's everything from Srila Prabhupada's purports and lectures. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now, one other point to notice here is Maharaj Parikshit did not sit just in the forest and meditate on Supreme Lord. He didn't say, okay, I have only 7 days left. Let me, just sit and look at the light or concentrate my mind on void. No, he didn't do that. He approached a spiritual master, a pure devotee of the Lord. Without the help of a devotee spiritual master, one cannot understand Krishna and make progress in bhakti. It cannot be a mental speculation. It has to be through the disciplic succession. So it's important for us to approach a spiritual master. With that, let's pray and begin the prayers of Sukhdev Goswami. So the first one, I'm not going to cover all the prayers today because of insufficient time. I'm just going to pick like 4 prayers from 2.4.12 to 2.4.23. So the first one is 2.4.12. Shri Shuka Uvacha Namah Parasmai Purushaya Bhuyasye Sad Udbhavastana Nirodha Leelaya Grihita Shakti Tritaya Dehinam Antarbhavayanu Lakshya Vartamani. Translation. Sukhdev Goswami said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, for the creation of material world, accepts the three modes of nature. He's the complete whole, residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable. Beautiful prayer. So it begins with this verse, the prayers. So when I read this prayer, the first thought which came to my mind was how merciful is Supreme Lord, who accepts the three modes of nature to create the material body and for residing in every living entity as Paramatma, guiding them every single minute. How many countless living entities are there? We can only see in this limited area that we see so many living entities, plants, trees, grass, animals, insects. But just imagine how much more are there in this material world. And Supreme Lord is so merciful. He resides in all of them. So that was my immediate thought, which came when I read the translation. Now let's see a few points from the purport. This material world is the manifestation of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the Supreme Lord, for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, accepts three dominating forms, which is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankara, which is Shiva. As Vishnu, he enters into every body materially created. As Garbhodakashai Vishnu, he enters into every universe. And as Kshirodakashai Vishnu, he enters the body of every living being. Here, if you notice, Sukhdev Goswami is praying to Lord Krishna and also glorifying and also telling us how important, how significant Lord is. Krishna's addressed here is Parapuman or Purushottam. He's a complete whole. The Purusha avatars are his planetary expansions. So, for example, if there's a candle burning and you take another candle and light using the first candle, that doesn't reduce the light or the brightness of the first candle, right? It still remains as is, how it was. Of course, candle will melt eventually, but what the point is, it will not, just because you're lighting another candle, it will not reduce the brightness of the first candle. So in the same way, no matter how many expansions Lord has, he is still the complete whole. Bhakti Yoga is the only process by which one has become competent to know him. Only with bhakti, you can know Krishna. The empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, they cannot understand Krishna. That is why Krishna is called Anupalakshya Vartamani, the Lord of inconceivable way, or Bhakti Yoga. This is a very important verse because it explains the amazing point of God, Krishna, who's Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, who's inconceivably simultaneously one and the same. People think that they can understand by academic study. It may help them understand a few things in this world, but it's very limited. You can understand Krishna only through Bhakti Yoga. In simple terms, doing Bhakti Yoga is chanting, doing services, eating prasadam, singing glories of Krishna, praying to Krishna. Bhakti Yoga is the best and the easiest process to achieve perfection in this human life. That's the key point. The next verse is text 14. Namo namaste sva rishabhaya sattvatam vidurakashyathaya muhakku yoginam nirastha samyati shena radasa swadhamani brahmani ramsyate namaha. It means, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him who's the associate of member of the Yadu dynasty and who is always a problem for non-devotees. He's a supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual world, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. Here, if you notice in this verse, they're trying to, Sukhdev Goswami is trying to explain the two sides of the transcendental manifestation of Krishna. One is his personal feature and the other is his impersonal feature. For pure devotees, he's a constant companion. For example, he's a family member of the Yadu dynasty. He's friend of Arjuna. He's a neighbor of Rajavasis. He's a son of Nanda Yashoda, friends of Sudama, Sridhama, Madhumangala, and love of gopis. Now, this is the part of his personal feature. And by his impersonal feature, what it means is he expands the rays of Brahma Jyoti. And this Brahma Jyoti is limitless and all pervasive. Now for us to understand this, let's take the example of sun. Brahma Jyoti is the sun rays. Now we cannot see the sun rays all the time. It's covered by clouds. These clouds are really small compared to the actual sun rays. Similarly, this insignificant part, which is covering the Brahmajyoti for us, is the material world. We are in the material world and we're getting covered. People generally focus on this Brahmajyoti and they just worship light and they are just looking at void and, they are the impersonalist. They are not concerned about personal form of the Lord. In fact, some of those who follow this, they even don't believe there is a personal form of the Lord. They say, how can there be personal form? Then someone must have created the personal form. So that is untrue. Lord has a personal form, and that we know because of the Shastras. Now let's go back to the sun example and try to understand the spiritual sky. So the way sun rays is concentrated in sun disk, Brahma Jyoti is concentrated in Goloka Vrindavan. And this Goloka Vrindavan is the topmost spiritual planet in the spiritual sky. The immeasurable spiritual sky is full of spiritual planets, like Vaikunthas. They are far from the material sky. Now these, some people like the mundanos, they don't have enough knowledge. Even of the sky, they won't have enough knowledge. And what will they understand of the spiritual sky? So they are far, far away from Krishna, from the personal form. So Lord in his residential abode will always remain a myth or like one mystery for such people. But for the devotees, Lord will always be available as an associate. So this is the advantage of being a devotee. You will know about Lord's personal form, and once you become a pure devotee, you can actually be an associate of Lord in Goloka Vrindavan. Everyone has a relationship with Krishna. Devotees understand this, but non-devotees will not understand this. Lord will establish a relationship with living entity, either in two ways, either impersonal or personal form. Mundanos are envious of Krishna, and as a result, they are envious of themselves by refusing being in Krishna consciousness. So this Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita 16.18. One becomes envious of themselves by becoming envious of Krishna. The translation of that verse is, bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blasphemy against the real religion. A demonic person being always against God's supremacy does not like to believe in scriptures. He is envious of both the scriptures and the existence of Supreme Personality of Godhead. This happens because of the so-called prestige and because of accumulation of wealth and strength. So when you have this so much of wealth and full of ourselves, full of strength, this false ego, you're always like envious and you just want to enjoy life yourself. And you don't understand this present life is a preparation of next life. But whereas devotees, they know the purpose of life and they know what needs to be done, who has to be served. But sometimes we tend to forget, and at least, in my case, we tend to do sense gratification, but somewhere we have that knowledge that we have to be serving Krishna. And that's why we need the association of devotees, because they will constantly remind us of what our position is and what's the position of Supreme Lord and what is the purpose of our life. So when I was reading this, I was thinking, like when we are preparing for an exam, we're so worried about our future. We know we should do very well, otherwise it will mess up our profession in future. Especially in India, we were always told 10th and 12th is extremely important years of education, and that will shape the future of our life. And so we would do everything for the exam, like anything. We won't waste the time. Even if we waste the time, we are constantly feeling guilty. Okay, we should not be doing this. Prepare for the exams. Exams is coming. It's like exam all the time. Why are we doing so much seriousness within this material for the exam? Because of our future in this material world, which is barely like 60, 70 years, but we are giving so much importance to those exams because of our future. Now, if we know that this life, what we have is a preparation of next life or possibly many, many next lives, how serious we should be about it. It's extremely important for us. So with that, I'll go to the next verse. Next verse from text 15. Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat ekshanam, yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat arhanam, lokasya sadyo vibhanoti kalmasham, tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha. It means, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Shri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrance, audience, prayers, hearing and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performers. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada talks how amazing Krishna consciousness is. Here in this verse, Sukhdev Goswami is telling, what are the ways in which our sins can be cleaned? Now, if someone tells us, house is very messy, and if someone comes and tells us, okay, this is how you have to clean it, because we have no idea how to clean it, assuming. And if someone says, this is what you do this and clean it, won't we follow it? And especially if we know that it can never be cleaned and we have to bear the brunt of it. But here, Sukhdev Goswami is saying it's very much possible to do so. The effects of all sins can be cleansed when we do devotional service. So let's see more in detail about it. Kirtanam. Kirtanam means glorifying the Lord. It can be done in many ways. Chanting is Kirtanam. Congregational singing of Hare Krishna mantra is Kirtanam. Offering prayers in front of the Lord. Hearing recitation of glorification of Lord from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. All of this is Kirtanam. One can be perfectly purified if one either glorifies Krishna, meditates upon Krishna, or simply sits before the deity of Krishna and sees him, thinking, oh, how beautifully Krishna is dressed today. How nicely Radharani is dressed. How beautiful they look. If one has no ability to chant, he's not able to chant, mind is so disturbed, cannot fix on Krishna, but still one is given a chance. Here is a deity, simply see him. That is one of the main reasons we go to temple. So we can see the deities and admire how beautiful they look. I just remember that recently we had Janmashtami and thousands of people had come to the temple. And since my service involved standing near the deity area, I was seeing that every person who was coming would stand in front and would just stand, look mesmerized, looking at the deities, like so beautiful they were. And they wouldn't move even an inch from that altar area because that's how powerful it was. Now, even those few seconds that they are there, they are doing devotional service. And God knows how much of sins are being cleansed. That's powerful, deities are. Now, so if we are engaged in service of deity and 24 hours a day, there's a high chance we're doing so much of devotional service, right? We are cleaning the floor, we are in the temple, we see the deities, while dressing the deities, while bathing the deities, while offering food. We always see this is the process of devotional service. But some people are so fallen that they don't even go to see the deity. They would rather be somewhere else than come to temple. They think, oh, what is this deity worship? It's just an idol worship. They may worship a statue of some mortal human being or someone else. But when asked, come worship to the deities, come to the temple, they'll say, no, I don't want to come. I'm too busy. This week I have that, I have this. Of course, I'm no exception. But they would rather just sit and meditate in the void and think of some spirituality, they say, and, look into some light and then come to the temple and look at the deities. So apart from singing, reading, and listening to glories of Krishna, there's one other important is listening to the pastimes of Kirtanam. Pastimes of Krishna, that is also Kirtanam. While preparing for this class, I came across this purport from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.1.4. And Srila Prabhupada has very clearly and beautifully explained the importance of Krishna Katha. So I thought I will, present in this class for everyone's pleasure. In that purport, Prabhupada says, when discourses on Krishna Katha take place between the liberated spiritual master and his disciple, others also sometimes take advantage of hearing these topics and also benefit. These topics are the medicine to stop the repetition of birth and death. The cycle of repeated birth and death, by which one takes on different bodies again and again, is called bhava or bhava roga. If anyone Willingly or unwillingly, here's Krishna Katha, his Bhava Roga, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Therefore, Krishna Katha is called Bhavaushada, the remedy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Karmis, or the people who are attached to material sense enjoyment, generally cannot give up their material desires. But Krishna Katha is such a potent medicine that if one induces to hear Krishna's Kirtan, he will certainly be freed from this disease. That's how powerful Krishna Katha is. It can stop the repetition of the birth and the death cycle. Now, referring to hippies, Prabhupada said, we actually see that even young boys and girls in Krishna conscious movement have given up their long practice of bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Because Krishna conscious is so potent that it gives them full satisfaction. They are no longer interested in material sense gratification. One of Prabhupada's early disciples had said, this Kirtan makes me feel so high, it's much more than LSD. LSD is the drug that hippies would use, and that makes them really high. But they were saying that just Kirtan would make it much more, like 100 times more than the drugs also. That's how powerful Kirtan is. Even the very sound of the holy name of Lord Krishna or Rama, when we just say that, it can purify the atmosphere spiritually. That's how powerful the holy names are. The process of Krishna consciousness should be very vigorously propagated all over the world. These methods of devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, and so on, are so perfect that as soon as one takes them up, either one or all of them or some of them, then one will become purified. Now, coming back to this verse, purport of this verse, Prabhupada says, but one thing we should be cautious about. We should not commit offenses on the basis of doing devotional service. This mentality of committing sins willfully on strength of devotional service, like saying, oh, I'm chanting, I can do this. If we do that, that's called namno bala dyasyahi papa buddhi. And that is the greatest offense in discharge of devotional service. So we need to watch out for that. When I read this, I thought of water tank with a hole. You keep filling water from one end and it keeps leaking from the other end. What is the use of such a devotional service when you keep committing offenses one after another? So we need to watch out for it. Now moving on to the next verse. Verse 16. Vichakshana yat sharanopasadhanat sangam yudasyo bhayatontara atmana vindanti hi brahma gatim gata klamas tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Let me offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto the all-auspicious Lord Shri Krishna, the highly intellectual, simply by surrendering onto his lotus feet, are relieved of all attachments to present and future existences, and without difficulty progress towards spiritual existence. So a few points from the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Persons who are intelligent take serious notice of this last instruction of the Lord. So this is a key verse, right, in Bhagavad Gita also, which is surrendering. That's the point here. So Prabhupada explains, knowledge of self is the first step in spiritual realization, which is the confidential knowledge. And once you get the knowledge of self, the spiritual realization, a step further is God realization, which is called more confidential knowledge. And this culmination of knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is God realization. When you get that God realization, then naturally one will become a devotee of the Lord. Becoming a devotee of the Lord means what? It means rendering him loving transcendental service. That is called God realization. This devotional service to the Lord is always based on love for God. And it's very different from karma yoga, jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga. In Bhagavad Gita, there are different instructions for different categories of people. There are various descriptions for varnashrama dharma, sannyasa dharma, then how to control senses, how to meditate, what is the perfection of mystic powers, and so much information is there in Bhagavad Gita. But the most important point is one who fully surrenders onto the Lord to render service unto him. And how does he render this service? Out of spontaneous love for him. It's not like forced, saying you have to do this. No, I want to do it because I love Krishna. So when a person does that and surrenders, that is the essence of all the knowledge described in the Vedas. And one who understands this and starts doing this very skillfully, that means that person has attained the perfection of life. In one conversation, Srila Prabhupada, one devotee asked Prabhupada, I'm sure many of you all have heard this, it's on YouTube also. If we have been there here lifetime after lifetime, so one devotee is asking, right? If we have been here lifetime after lifetime, performing impious activities, does it mean that we have to be here lifetime after lifetime, performing pious activities to balance out our sinful reactions? So basically he's asking, so many years we have done impious, so should we do so much more lives again, pious to equal, plus or minus kind of math? So Srila Prabhupada said, amazing reply, and so powerful also. Prabhupada said, 1 minute, that is Krishna conscious moment. 1 minute. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja mameka sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma suchaha. It means you surrender to me, give up all your business. I will give you relief from all the sinful reactions immediately. This is guaranteed from Krishna. So it requires just 1 minute. You have to say, my dear Krishna, I had forgotten you, now I understand. I fully surrender onto you. Then you will become immediately free from all sinful reactions. The last part and the key part, Bhakti Yoga is the highest form of the perfection attainable for all intelligent individuals. You don't need to do any other activities. For example, like a handful of real paddy is more valuable than heaps of paddy skin without any substance within. Similarly, one should not be attracted by the jugglery of the karma kanda, jnana kanda, and the gymnastic performance of yoga, but skillfully should take up the simple performance of kirtanam, smaranam, etc. under the bona fide spiritual master. And once you do this, then you will surely attain perfection. In summary, Bhakti Yoga is the easiest, but one needs to perform it sincerely by following the instructions of the spiritual master and do it in association of devotees. With that, I conclude the class today. Thank you all devotees for joining. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prashant.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, for beautiful service for Sukhdev Goswami's prayers. You started with the overall context, and then you broke down all these essential verses. I share some points that I liked. At first you set the example for all of us from Sukhdev Goswami. You offered prayers to Krishna before you spoke. It's one takeaway for me. And you also talked about how Maharaj Parikshit, when he had 7 days, he didn't sit and follow some other yoga. Instead, he approached a devotee, he approached a spiritual master, and that sets an example for us that we can't do mental speculation. It has to be, we have to surrender through disciplic succession to go to Godhead. And then the verses that you covered, you talked about how merciful the Supreme Lord is, how he countless living entities and he all of them. You talked about how only in bhakti we can understand Krishna, because the Lord is inconceivable. Achinti Veda Tattva you highlighted, and the only way we can truly understand the Lord is chanting, books, prayer, prasadam, all of those things. You also very nicely broke down personal and impersonal, and how devotees view the Lord as constant companion, and that devotees view Krishna as that we have a relationship with Krishna, and it's our duty to serve Krishna. But impersonal Brahma Jyotir, if you are attracted to that, it's mostly because you're envious of Krishna or a demonic person, and you have some ill will towards Krishna and you're against Krishna. So because you don't understand the purpose of life, then you think the Lord doesn't have a personal form. And I really like the point where you gave the exam example where we study so much for an example, and how similarly this life is preparation for our next life, and we have to take that same intensity for spiritual service. And we also talked about in verse 15 how we can do devotional service, and how we can engage in many different ways, and it helps us realize how powerful and beautiful the Lord is. Even if we can't chant, we can use our eyes and see how beautiful the Lord is. And you also highlighted the importance of the understanding Krishna Katha and hearing Krishna Katha, and that's the remedy to stop the cycle of birth and death, as Prabhupada says. So that was a very nice point, Mataji. And then you also talked about how we can't willfully commit offenses. We can't have papa buddhi. That's the greatest offense. And finally, the last verse you talked about, the culmination of all of this is we have to develop love for God. And like Prabhupada says, we just have to surrender for 1 minute, surrender sincerely. And if we it's very difficult for us to do that, so instead we have to do render service to our spiritual master, to deities and devotees through Bhakti Yoga, so that we can get to that 1 minute of surrender. So thank you so much, Mataji. Wonderful class. With that, devotees, we will conclude our program. We are starting a new theme next week onwards, which is prayers of King Chitraketu, Canto 6, Chapter 16, verses 34 to 48. Please kindly sign up. Please let Veena Mataji or I know if you're interested. We have openings in October all the way through January. Like Mataji said, it's very important for us to hear and read Krishna Katha. So please take this opportunity to sign up. Hare Krishna. Thank you.